Can you follow your human design and actually make money? Today, I want to talk about this very important question, not because I have all the answers. I am going to give you my take on it, and I am going to give you my advice if you are someone that is really deep into your experiment and are having this question constantly. Um, this is a question that I've struggled through and sometimes still do. Um, for many years. I am 6 years into my human design experiment, and I now have a tribe of people, of more than 100 people that I unite that are all following their human design. This is in my Spanish side of things, and this question must be the most repeated question of all. Okay. And hi, if you don't know me, my name is Trini Cubillos, researcher, studier, sharer of human design. I am an emotional generator. My profile is 4-6. I am the cross of planning, anyways. That is some information about me. And I tell you this information because I think that also it's important to remember when you're listening to someone, it's important to have their design in mind. There are many things I'm going to mention that probably are going to be relevant or more relevant to generators and manifesting generators. But I do intend to talk to everyone and all different types with this conversation. So, first, a little bit of context of how I've struggled with this and how I've also come out of it, even though I still struggle with it. So, I grew up as a very enslaved generator, as most of us generators grow up. No, like I was a very good student in school. I did all the things right. I was that kind of personality where I was going towards everything that success needed to look like. And I was a very like go-getter personality, and so I went and got it, and I achieved a lot of the things. um, for example, just to give you an example, I grew up in a kind of weird, strange situation where I went to like a very, very, very fancy school in my country in Latin America, where schools that are very fancy are very rare in that way. And by fancy, I mean like millionaires would go to that school. And it really impacted me to go through this because um, I was not of the same type of person as the majority of the students there. I was there because I was on a scholarship. And that really like marked me because I thought I was very middle class. But since I grew up with contact with these very, very wealthy people, as starting from 3 years old, right? And I grew up in a country where it was my country, my cousins spoke Spanish and everything, but I never had any apart from like my cousins, which didn't treat me nicely because I was weird, because I was growing up in this different world. I never had a connection with Chile the way that other people do. And so I grew up a stranger in my own country, but then in the world that I was in, I was a stranger as well. And it really marked me. It really made me say, okay, well, I need to get out myself out of poverty. I remember going back home and I truly believed that I was poor because my house was so much smaller than the houses of the people that I would go to. My friends, I would sleep in my friend's house and they would have, 5 maids. And I thought that was the norm. And I only had one maid, but I still had a maid. And so, you know, it was all distorted, of course, and I can see that now, but it really marked me. Um, and so I grew up wanting to attain all of the things that the world wants you to attain or wants you to want to attain. And I said to my parents very early on, because it was normal in my school for kids to go out of the country to university and often to the United States. And I said, I'm going to the United States to university. My parents said, well, that's a beautiful dream, but I'm so sorry, we can't make it happen. It's way too expensive and it's not possible. And I said, fuck that, it is possible, and I'm gonna do it. And I did. And I ended up getting a $250,000 scholarship to go study in the United States. I studied in Connecticut. It was a beautiful experience, but lucky for me, it was early on in my journey to success, to my idea of success and where I was going to. I studied economics, and my plan was Wall Street. I was in it for the money. And, you know, lucky for me, I discovered early on that there was something wrong with this whole plan. I started getting depressed, which is a good thing when where you're going is not where you should be going, and so depression comes in and saves you in some ways. But anyways, so everything else is a story for another day, but that's an example of how I grew up as a generator that was doing all the things for somebody else, for the idea of success. And so, many things in between. And then human design comes into my life about 6 years ago. And I started experimenting with this idea of following my sacral, becoming a sacral being who follows herself. And as you know, if you are in this journey for a long time, or maybe you're discovering it if you've just started, it's a journey. There's like years of, is this my sacral? There's deaths and rebirths. And I think that one thing I always say to the clients that I work with is, if you're feeling you're going through like a death process and it's very hard and it's very painful, you're on the right track. Because it's really crazy how we believe we are this person that we have become. I was just talking to one of my teachers, and I was telling them how I was so good at school. I was holding on to all the facts. I was very good at math. Math was like my best subject apart from like economics. And it was all because I was holding on to all this information. And as a defined Ajna, it really isn't what my forte is, what I'm here to do in the world is not where I shine. I don't have a defined Ajna. I'm not here to shine because of my mind per se. And 6 years into my design now, I can barely even do numbers anymore. And I was this like person that excelled at, I mean, I worked in a bank when I started working in the corporate world, and I was doing numbers, and now it's like, ask me what 4 times 7 is, or I've let go of all of that. And deconditioning is like that, and you get surprised at the person that you actually are. And so there's this question that arises, so that we can get to the topic. There's this question that arises when you start following your sacral, where it's like, okay, well, I want to follow my sacral. I'm learning to do this. Can I make money while I'm doing this? Because all the ways that we're taught to make money, suddenly, most of the time, they don't appeal to our sacral energy anymore. And so one of the most common things that happens is you're working a job that isn't for you. And then you have to make the bold call, if you respond to quitting that job, that you have to actually go through with that. And then you have to figure out what you're doing with my life. And it happened to me that I have 16, the gate of skills in an undefined throat. I'm emotional. And so it happened to me that I started sharing human design very very prematurely. I started sharing all the things that I was learning, and I started working with it. And I went through so many stages of finding ways to make money, and then not resonating with those ways anymore, and not having energy to keep doing the same thing. And so I started having these conundrums and being like, okay, but if I'm here to like follow my sacral, then like and but I'm not responding to anything that makes me money, like how am I supposed to live? And this is the thing that I see people struggling with a lot, and the question that they ask me. And to be honest, I don't always like answering this question because I'm not sure about it myself. But today, I really felt like I had something to say. And so I hope that if this is you, my take on it, which is two main things I want to say right now, it gives you some support or some relief, because this is what I do for myself. And if there's anyone listening that is better at this, or that knows more than me, that is a more of a human design expert and has a better answer for this, please go ahead and leave it down in the comments. I am done like pretending that I know everything. I really don't. But this is my take. So the first thing is that it's very important to realize that human design is not for this world. Human design is not it's an idealistic system, in the way that it describes your ideal way of operating, right? And I think that the world that we would achieve, if we ever do, when everyone is living their design, if that ever happens, is a beautiful world. It's beautiful. It's like whatever we think about when we think of like New Earth, or if you have that concept, that's what it is, right? But it is not. It's very, very, very far from the world that we live in right now. And so that's a very important piece of information. Like, you are trying to be idealistic about this tool in a world that is not ideal, and that is a problem, that is a discongruency that needs to be fixed. And this is also something that I see with a lot of people, and this is something that I've gone through myself, is being too extreme about human design. We get very, like, in Spanish we say camiseteado, like we get very like in the like supporters of human design, right? Like, yay, like this is the right thing and we must do this. And it can easily become like kind of extreme, where we take it to an extreme. And this is something I've learned, is a book that was very influential for me was Revolution of One by Marianne Winnegar. She's a generator. And when I read her book, it really moved me, and it really did take me a step deeper into my sacral response and my experiment. So it really did help me. But I've had to let it go as well, because she is a person that is very extreme in the experiment. And what I've learned now with my latest teacher as well is that we really need to be cautious about becoming so extreme in the experiment. Like, people who are like, I'm not going to move off the couch until like someone comes in front of me and then I respond, that is probably not going to be a very empowered way to live your life. And we must remember that human design is here to empower us, or at least for me, I want to use it to empower myself. And there are many times where I get deep into the tool and I'm learning a lot about the tool, but sadly it takes me more into my mind and I'm feeling disempowered. And so there's these moments where I'm having to take myself out, or kind of like look at the big picture of my life again and be like, okay, dude, like chill out a little bit. Not everything needs to be like filtered through this lens of human design. Okay. But I really think it's important to remember we don't live in this world where it's just all perfect, at least yet. Okay. And so when you learn, for example, that you're a generator and you must follow your sacral, and you start seeing that that has an effect, you say, well, this is the way now. This is the way, right? But you still are part of a world that is not ideal and whose structures are still homogenized. Yeah. And so, what are you going to do with that? So, there's a choice there. For me, at least, it's been like, are you going to be kind of like a starving artist and just be like happy because you're following your sacral and there's nothing that you're doing that is against your sacral, but you're struggling to survive, struggling to feed your family, depriving yourself of, the experiences maybe that you want to have in this world? And then the other extreme would be like, fuck being correct, let's just become a millionaire, because there's so many ways nowadays you can make money. And I think it's somewhere in the middle, more towards always following your human design. What I would say to someone right now with what I've learned and what I do is, when possible, follow your human design. And actually, I do think that, like, approaching my 7-year mark of deconditioning, like, I do think that it becomes pretty possible to follow your design most of the time. I do think that, day to day, it's hard to see how things go falling off. But when you see it through the years, so many things go falling off that don't belong for you. And eventually you start finding your way. But what's important is, like, you start finding your way to making money. Does that mean you're finding your way to like 100K months? Or even for me, it's been even 10K months. Like, I want to get there. Like, I'm not going to like stand here in front of the camera and lie and say I don't want to have like passive income, or financial freedom, whatever that means for each person that's watching. And I'm working towards that. I'm just taking my time with it, knowing that there is so much more value of walking that path in a way that is aligned, because I know that that's going to be sustainable for me. So I might take 5 years to get there versus 5 months, but I know I'm going to probably be able to do that through the rest of my life and keep growing sustainably, versus coming up with a quick solution for something and then burning out, which I used to do before. of course, as a generator. So this is the first big thing that I wanted to say is don't be idealistic in a world that isn't ideal. And the second thing I want to say, and this of course is through the lens of my generator being, but you can apply it to yourself. And if you do, please let me know how you applied it to yourself in the comments, is that I've realized something, which is that I respond to making money. Okay. Now, this obviously has to do with other things as well. Every design is different. And so whenever you do hear me talk about this part of your design, it's really important to remember that the analysis of a design has to be holistic. So I, for example, my sun and my earth is 37, 40. So I'm quite a tribal being, and tribal, theme has to do with money as well. And so I'm a person that has money in their design in some way or another. And so what I've realized is I respond to making money. And sometimes what happens with conditioning is that you mentalize conditioning and you think, oh, well, if you're thinking about money, then you're initiating from the mind, or this is not aligned with your design because the soul doesn't care about money. And that is true in some ways, that the your soul and your mission here is not really concerned with that, but you're not just that, right? And you're living in this world. And so the piece that I have found lately a lot is I respond to having enough money. That doesn't mean having more than enough, or that doesn't mean having, it's different for every person. But for me, for example, and I'll be really honest in the moment that I am right now, I am working with people one-on-one more than I think is ideal for me. Like, I think it would be awesome to work with one client or two clients a month and just be able to give them so much of my time and go super deep, because what I love to do with my 952 channel of logic is to really understand what I'm seeing in front, the person, mostly the chart. I go crazy with human design information, which is why I'm still doing what I'm doing. And when I have, 4 or 5 clients, it's more limited. I get drained more. But at the moment, this is the way that I can bring enough money for my family. I charge like $600-700 for a package working with me, quite a few sessions. And if I sell, these are easy for me to sell. There's a lot of people that want to work with me. And so it's a way I can cover my cost and, get to work on my financials, which is something that I'm working on. And I am this is what we do with a family. My husband helps me with my human design stuff. And so this is what we bring in as a family. And I have this idea or this desire that my community, I have a school community in Spanish where there's more than 100 people. Actually, we're getting to 200 now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 186 people right now as of today. And I really want this to be my main source of income. And I go in there every week and do classes, and there's a bunch of people learning design. And I've recorded a whole, more than 40 hours about how to read a chart, and it's all in there. And for me, it's been how beautiful to have 5,000 people in here. 500 or 1,000 people in here. And then this is my job and I can give it my all. That's kind of my plan, right? Is that happening? No, it's not feeding my family at the moment. And so I have to make a choice, and here's something else that I haven't shared with anyone. And I'll end with this, kind of wrapping up this second point, is it really can feel like when you respond to making money that you're going against yourself. And it just really isn't that. You can respond to making money and you can say, I'm going to do this thing for an hour a day because this is what's going to get me money. And then the rest of the day, I'm going to follow my design. I know it's not perfect. And I feel like I don't even want to put this video up because I feel like, I don't know, I might get canceled or something. But it's so true. What I tell people if they're in this job that they hate, it's okay, can you work with less money and can you get a part-time job? Because I really believe that the difference starts happening when you have more time to be yourself, more time to do the things you want to do. If you're a projector, more time to study, and then see what starts happening in your life because you're doing more you. But sometimes, again, we're in this non-ideal situation. And sometimes it's like, for me, what I've resorted to, because I was a lot of years being like, no, I'm not, like, I don't know, I'm feeling drained with my sessions. So that must mean they're not for me, even though I was transforming lives. So whatever, this month I made $300. Let's see what happens. It's just the way life is. It's just the way, it's what my design, wants for me. And I just like really, I'm done with that. Like, no, let me get another client even though I'm tired, because for now, I'm super grateful that that I have all these people wanting to work with me, and let me take care of myself the most I can, and keep listening to myself the most I can, so that every other moment, um, I am walking each time more towards my ideal. But I mean, this is what it's about. It's about the same with our inner work with human design. It's about understanding that things are not rainbows and butterflies. It's not always ideal. Um, and at the same time, this new kind of mindset has brought me a lot of gratitude for everyone I work with, even though I might be tired, or there might be an ideal of working with one client a month. Like, I love working with my clients and I make a big difference in their lives. And so at least I know that I'm on the right track, that I'm doing something that's serving. And I think those things are really important as well. And I'm not going against my sacral. Maybe it's just not the ideal, like, perfection. Okay. So I think that's my second point. I don't know if it was like, if I got it out clearly. So I'll say this: get your needs met. Like, how much money do you need? Don't get greedy. What is the minimum that you like? If you have this problem, what is the minimum you need? And find a way to get it that is the least resistant way to get it. And then make sure you live your life the best way in the other parts. Make sure you are grateful with what you do have to make money, and do that and watch how things slowly transition from there. But if you just stay like, no, I can't do anything because no one's giving me an invitation, and I can't move off the couch because I don't have a response, then like that's going to get you more stuck, and there's going to be no movement, versus like actually doing a little bit of something that gives you resistance, and then moving forward in your life, finding more and more alignment with time through action. Okay, so I said it. I said this, and it's messy for me because I usually, like, I'm very comfortable with coming here and explaining the fourth line profile or explaining this or that. But I wanted to address this. I think it's important. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know.